Hi, welcome. Today we've got Ryan Shieh, 2021 catcher, Liberty University signee, heading off to play for Coach Scott Jackson in the Atlantic Sun Conference. Ryan, appreciate you spending some time with us.
No, thank you for having me, sir. I appreciate it.
Yeah, great. So tell me a little bit about yourself for those who don't know who Ryan Shieh is.
I'm a senior at Bishop McNamara High School in Forestville, Maryland. I'm 5'10", 195, and yeah, I'll be heading to Liberty next year.
Awesome. So when you look at your resume, what stands out? What are some of your top athletic accomplishments?
I was when I was a sophomore, my sophomore year in summer, I was a participant in the area code underclass games. I went out there for a week.
So how do you get there? That's an invite only?
Yeah, that's you got to get recommended by an MLB scout for the tryout, and my college that I was committed to at that time had a good connection there, so he got me hooked up, and then I got out there to California.
What was that like? Pretty good competition?
Yeah. No, it was crazy. It was the first time I've actually been somewhere, out of state where there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of people there that, you wouldn't regularly see, at a baseball field. But it was surreal. Once I got accustomed to it, it was good. But at first it was definitely some butterflies.
So tell me about the commitment to Liberty. How old were you? Is it recent? Did you commit early? What was your time? What was your timeline?
Yeah, I committed to Liberty last January, so it's been about a year now. I was committed to Maryland before that, and I decommitted in October of 2019 for Maryland, and then recommitted to Liberty in January 2020.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So that's kind of an interesting. So what was it about Maryland, or tell me about the original interaction with Maryland? What drew you to that school, and how did that commitment work?
Yeah, so I'm a Maryland home kid, and my dad went to Maryland, so I've always been a big fan of Maryland. Rooting for him since I was a kid. And my high school coach was good friends with one of the coaches at Maryland, so I was local, so they came out and watched me, and they offered me. And at that time, I was a young sophomore. I was like, I want to get this done. I want to get a college commitment. I want to get on social media, all this stuff. So I was like, I'm in. So I committed to Maryland as a sophomore.
Yeah, so Power Five school. I mean, yeah, that seems like a hometown. Seems like a no brainer. But obviously, in today's world, with guys committing really early in the process, maybe a little bit too quick, or maybe there's a long time between guys that are middle school freshmen and sophomores between when they commit and then when it actually goes down to where you're signing something on a piece of paper. Tell me about that process and what changed for you.
Yeah, so I was I was a big fan. I mean, I was all in on Maryland when I committed. I was excited. I was looking forward to being on campus, and I had a visit, there. And when I got there, it just didn't seem comfortable. It didn't seem for me. I didn't feel like that was a place I was going to be, for the next 3 to 4 years. Because reality is, a lot of us like to commit to big schools, but you're living there every day, for 4 years. So to me, it was hometown, but it seemed like this wasn't home to me. It didn't feel comfortable.
So when you look back at that process, were you able to take a visit prior to making that commitment to Maryland?
I did not. I went to a camp in the summer before I committed, and they had like a small, kind of show you around campus a little bit, but it wasn't anything official. I think back then they had dates where if you were at a certain age, you couldn't get on campus.
So tell me about that process so they make an offer, you're pretty excited at that age, wanting to try to, solidify something and kind of get it behind you. And
Yeah,
then once you get on campus, things,
yeah,
it doesn't have that feel. You're
yeah,
not.
yeah.
So what happens there? Do you decommit? there, are you waiting, spending some time trying to think it through? How did it work after that?
Yeah, well, I'm a big faith guy with Jesus, and I was contemplating, like, is this somewhere where I need to be, where God's putting me here to lead, or is this somewhere where I kind of went down my own path. I'm doing something too early. It's not where I need to be. And I was talking to my family, talking to friends, coaches, and they were just saying, like, you need to feel where you're gonna go and get the most impact and be yourself, because, like, you can't lead anybody if you're not being yourself. And my parents at first, were kind of like, this is a good scholarship. You're right here. You don't have to travel. This is great. This is like right here. And we thought about it for a couple of weeks, and it's just like, do we really want to do this? And then after a while, I was like, yeah, like, I trust God to lead me somewhere where I need to be. So then we pulled the trigger.
So, how did it work with Liberty? So you're back out there, restarting the recruiting process. I'm assuming you're talking with different schools again, kind of
Yeah.
restarting the process up. How did you end up at getting an offer from Liberty?
Yeah. So I decommitted, and then it's funny because immediately after I decommitted, the next day I got, like, all these friends and coaches, like, where you want to go, where you want to go, I can help you and stuff. And I'm like in school, like, trying to, like, talk to everybody. And they're like, would you want to go here? Do you want to stay local? Where do and they reached out to schools. Some of them reached out to schools without even asking, just to, like, get it on the thing. And after a while, one of the travel organizations I used to play with, they contacted Liberty, and they said Liberty was interested, and they wanted to get me down at a camp. And so they got me a Liberty camp, and then West Virginia interest. They had both interests there. And honestly, me and my family, we were not expecting to go to Liberty to, like, to commit there, because with history, whatever, it's like, West Virginia, nice field, nice campus, good school. We're like, that's probably the ideal situation. But then we went to Liberty, and it was great, and the experience was good, and the offer, it was great, and then we had to really think about it again.
Yeah, for sure. So let's walk back. Tell me about the conversation with the Maryland coaches when you make that decommit. That's a tough conversation for a young
Yeah,
man, especially at
yeah.
that age, to have. How did you handle that? How did it go? Were they pretty cool about it? I'm sure. I mean, it happens a lot. So
Yeah. No, it was definitely tough. I made the decision to, like, I was gonna do it like on a Tuesday, and I said, after practice Wednesday, I'm gonna do it. Like, I'm gonna call, I'm gonna get it over with, get this thing rolling. And I texted the coach. I was like, you have time to talk in like 30 minutes or so when I get home. And then immediately my phone rings. So I'm, like, sitting in my car at practice, and he's, like, calling me. I'm like, oh crap, like, it's about to go down, And so he calls me, and I was just kind of explaining to him, like, this isn't really comfortable. I don't really feel like, this is where I need to be. And then the first coach was kind of like, what can we do to help? Can we change anything? And at that point, I kind of made up my mind. I was like, I think this needs to happen. And he was a little disappointed, kind of confused. He was like, I'll send head coach a text message, and then I called head coach, and he was understanding. And I think the whole thing in the end, it was great. It wasn't any hard feelings. I know the head coach definitely understood where I was coming from.
yeah, and I think the fact that it wasn't, just immediately you already had another team. Hey,
Right, 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 right.
I just talked with this
Yeah.
other coach. It was really, hey, I'm opening it back up. I'm being
Right, right.
that makes it a little smoother too.
Yep,
So
exactly.
walk me back. Obviously, you're getting recruited pretty early, pretty good player. For those players out there, one of the big problems they have is trying to get an accurate assessment of their abilities and where they can play. Hey, can I play a Power Five? Can I even play D1?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your measurables and maybe the growth of your measurables and what got coaches to come out and see you. Maybe exit velocity or your pop time, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. When I was a freshman, I was thrown into the fire on varsity, and I was on a pretty good varsity team. So I had to get myself in a situation where I was ready. I could handle the big boys and stuff like that. And to be honest with you, as a freshman, I was the catcher, and I was I was a defensive catcher for the team. So I hit maybe, 1 or 2 games a week. I didn't hit every game. So, but I caught every game. So like when I was done with that season, my catching was pretty good. The hitting was decent, and my the catching numbers were pretty high for college. So at that point, especially early with Maryland, there was a big opportunity for them to see me as a defensive catcher. So that's pretty much where I got that college scholarship from.
As you look back, what were if you had to label something as your big break in the recruiting process, was it a camp? Was it a phone call a coach made? What do you consider kind of your big break that, and you might have two, one that kind of got you looked at by Maryland and maybe also Liberty?
Yeah, I think personally, when we say breaks, I think for me, it was more of a sign to push somewhere else. When I was in between Liberty and West Virginia, it was very, like, where do we go? I went to West Virginia's camp, and they were like, "We'll call you in a couple of weeks. We really like you." And they called me, and they said, they want me really bad, but they don't have any money left for the class. So immediately after we got that, we're thinking ourselves like, like, we're being pointed to go to Liberty. This is where you need to go. We're not gonna try to play our cards at West Virginia. They have no money left. So that was for us. That was the break that you were talking about.
Sure. When you look back, what was the first thing you did in the recruiting process? Send an email? Was it make a phone call to a coach? Put a video together? Do you remember back what you kind of did early in the process?
Yeah, my when I got to the new high school, the immediate thing he did was get a bunch of video, stuff like that, measurables, and he sent it over to Maryland. And with me being local, Maryland came out to like a scrimmage we had, like one of the coaches, and he saw me there. But I've never been, big, perfect game, PBR kind of guy. Um, it may have just been luck of the draw with me, but I've never had to I need, this is my profile, like see this, see that, because we at the end of the day we kind of trusted that if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen, and you're gonna be where you need to be regardless of your profile.
Sure. So you mentioned some visits on campus, kind of for maybe some players that have never been on a campus visit. Can you kind of maybe walk us through? Did you get one at Liberty as well?
Yes, yep, we visited Liberty.
Can you walk us through like what those visits were like and maybe some of the differences you saw in some of the different schools how
Yeah,
they did visits so people kind of know what that is?
yeah. So I think a big part of college that I personally feel like a lot of people don't think about is the life you're gonna have to live for 3 or 4 years. Like it's completely different than staying at home with your parents. You get to do whatever you want. Uh, I know at Maryland freshman year, like I wasn't gonna be able to drive on campus because it's so big. But Liberty is a lot. It's big, but it's a lot smaller school than Maryland, and it was easy, accessible classes and going to and from. You could drive. There's a lot of benefits to that. West Virginia was a big school. It's a humongous school. So like I think that's important when you're visiting schools. It's like you want to make sure you know what you're doing, you know where you're going, you have access to the things that you need within 5-10 minutes. Because when you get there and you can't drive and you have nowhere to go, it's like now what are you going to do? So that's what I would do.
It's interesting because like I talked to a lot of guys and you'd be amazed how many guys visited like one school and it was the school that they got the offer from. And,
Yeah,
so it, not looking around,
yeah,
I think that's why you see a lot of transfers. So a lot of guys just jump and then
right,
they're not able to kind of, or mature enough to maybe once they do figure that out to have that conversation like you had or change course and then they're kind of stuck and they end up in that transfer
yeah,
portal.
yeah. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
So talk to me about the coaches. What were the coaches' roles in your recruiting process? You mentioned your high school coach. Maybe talk maybe a little about your travel coaches in this process.
Yeah, so it was it was different the second time around with Liberty. First time around, my high school coach was Boone, Maryland. Like that was this connection. And second time around, the high school coach started, trying to get Virginia Tech or some of the other schools down south, ECU, whatever. He personally, he didn't have a connection with Liberty, and it just so happened that the old travel organization did. And that was a school that they reached out to me. They were like, "You want to go here? Would you want to go to a camp?" And like I said earlier, we were like, sure, like we'll go.
It's a
And it turned
beautiful
out,
field, man. Beautiful
yeah,
campus.
it's
Yeah.
crazy. Oh, it's crazy. But it was, and this is no shot to my high school coach at all. But the Liberty connection was the travel organization, and he was close to one of the coaches, and then they got me to a camp there.
Sure. So tell me about your travel baseball experience. What are the different teams you've played for? And one of the things I get asked a lot is, hey, how do I pick or how do I choose which travel team I play for? Can you talk about how important travel baseball was in your process?
Yeah.
And then how you chose which teams you played for?
Yeah. So when I was like 10 to 12, I played neighborhood, just county ball. Nothing too crazy, especially for Maryland. Maryland doesn't have a lot of, crazy ranked organizations. But we went to Cooperstown when we were 12, and we played this team out of Virginia that was just like crazy. Like they smoked us. And my dad was like, we gotta get on the phone with these guys because they're pretty good. And it just so happened that the team was based out of Richmond, but that team particularly was in Vienna, which is like an hour from us. So we were like, you know what, we're going to do it. We're going to play with these guys. We played for the Richmond Braves, 13 to 14, traveled up and down the East Coast, a lot of crazy stuff. And then when I was 15, going into high school, we switched to a couple organizations just because of, location and accessibility and stuff like that. But I think the main thing for, young guys when they're choosing travel ball organizations is I wouldn't press to go to these big name, teams because you go, you get to put it in your Instagram bio, but like you're not playing, so it's not going to do you any good. I mean, if you can find somewhere that you're going to be playing all the time and, you're seeing good amounts of talent when you're playing, I mean, to me, that's perfectly fine.
So talk to me about like in your player development. So you go from like some local balls, maybe some smaller teams, and then you make that jump and you're playing on a really good travel team. How does that help you get better as a person, and how did that open your eyes to, wow, there's some good dudes out here?
Yeah. I'm not a big guy of, like trying to like, tell everybody how good I am or anything. But when I was 13, I was thrown into a much different environment than I was used to. I was around kids that were practicing every day, not just on practice days. These kids had, all the bats, all the gloves they needed, and it's like, I got to pick this up. So the coach of that team, actually, he had a facility of his own. And me and my dad used to go out there, hour drive, every other day or so after school and just hit, throw, do all this stuff that you needed to do. And it didn't really come around until I was like 14 and a half, 15, where I was like, okay, like now I can hang. I finally got accustomed to whatever the pitching and, speed, velocity of the game. So, I mean, the development was good, but it definitely didn't come as soon as you would expect.
So, talk to me a little bit about the communication process. So, for a lot of players and their parents, they don't understand how that works, especially for early communication, because while you're allowed to call coaches, they're not allowed to call you, so they have to work through travel coaches or high school coaches. Can you talk about how that process works if you're a freshman and sophomore before the
Right, right.
comes out?
Yeah, so when I was communicating with Maryland, that was when I was in the younger age, kind of section, and it was tough because of the rule, but at the same time, for me particularly, it was a little bit easier because we were in state. So whenever we would be able to get there, on campus, like they would be able to talk to me. We should do everything we needed to do, but outside of that, it was very limited. Uh, for what I would recommend, if they want to talk to you, they'll find a way to talk to you. I got plenty of texts from my high school coach like, hey, he wants to talk tonight, or like next week he really wants to get on the phone. He was just like, if we want to do it, we want to do it. So I wouldn't press any coach about like, hey, really want to talk. We need to get this. If they want you bad enough, and they really see a place for you in their school and their program, then they would get in touch with you when they need to.
So for a kid that's never had a conversation with a college coach, what are those calls like? How long do they take? What are they talking about?
Yeah. So one of the Maryland coaches I predominantly talked to, he was a talker. We used to talk for like hours, hour and a half. And you want to be respectful. You need to be on top of things. Don't be doing everything else while you're on the call. But most of the time, they're just trying to figure out who you are, because there's a lot of kids out there that that can play baseball, and it's not really about the talent anymore. They care about your heart and they care about how you treat people. So I would definitely give them your best.
So was it mostly over the phone? Did you text coaches? Did you do any social media DMs? What were the different communication methods?
For me in Maryland, it was straight phone calls, because the texts weren't allowed and the emails weren't allowed, besides the college emails that everybody gets for the camps. But when I got to Liberty and that was all finished, me and the head coach and all the other coaches, we got text message, iMessage, and we've gotten pretty close to do that. So I think it depends on what time you really do it.
Sure. So what tools did you use? Did you use any recruiting services or anything like that, or were you just out there on your own?
Yeah, I was out there on my own. My parents, and I mean, I agree with them. We got to a point where we realized, having a profile is great. You get all your measures. You search yourself up and you're right there. But we figured, if you know somebody that has the connection, it's right there. You don't have to, you don't have to prove yourself to anybody. If you're the person that they want, they'll find you. So we never really paid for any of that stuff. We never, try to like work our way in. Like the area code thing was free, so like we did that. But everything else, we try to stay away from.
So what about were there any camps or showcases like that you went to that you thought, other than the area code games there, that you maybe got in front of some coaches or that was helpful, or you pretty much stay away from that part as well?
Yeah, we did a couple camps when I was younger. Predominantly, we did like USSSA or something.
Mm-hmm.
But the more so the college thing, it was them seeing me more at like bigger stages of games, like Lake Point, or going down to where their school is in that area. It wasn't I went to like Perfect Game or whatever, and then they happened to see me there.
So you mentioned earlier that one of the things that your high school coach did, you put some film together, some video. What kind of role did video play in your recruiting process? And talk a little bit about how important that is to have some good video.
Yeah, I would definitely carry a couple swings, a couple throws and stuff. When someone's reaching out to a college, and they get a plain text like, we want this guy, you want to check this guy out. I'm sure colleges get a lot of those texts, so like you kind of gotta give them something else to, be interested, especially if you're trying to go somewhere that's, that's far and they don't know you, they never heard of you. So I would definitely include some of that stuff.
So when you're doing video, what kind of video are you sending? Are you doing swings in the cage? Are you sending game footage? What type of video are you using, and how are you getting that to the coaches? Are you using YouTube or
Yeah. So for me, I video it 100 times so I get it right. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I do like a couple work practice or in-game stuff. In-game stuff's always great because they want to see playing with other people. But if you send them like a practice video, I would probably want to be something where you're repeating what you're doing. You don't want to try to just like wow them with some crazy hit or something in practice. So keep it consistent.
You're a multi-sport guy. You focus just on baseball.
Yeah. I played basketball in middle school in my in my local middle school. But in high school, I didn't play just because of time. But weekends, whenever I have free time, me and my friends will always play. We'll always do something together.
What about academics? Did that play a role in your recruiting process? Were coaches asking you about that? Was that important?
Yeah, academics is big when you're talking about scholarship for Maryland. With it being in school and with the baseball and with the academics, it was crazy. Academics is always something that you want to try to do your best. Even though it seems a little hard sometimes. Liberty is the same way. I got the baseball scholarship, didn't get the in school, but the academic, it depended on like how high your scores were or how high your GPA was. So if you could do things there where you could try to limit the amounts of money you're paying, then you gotta do what you gotta do.
As you look back, any mistakes you made along the path? We talked about the decommitment part. Any other mistakes as far as that you would recommend? Hey, learn from what I did if you're a young player.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason, But I think if anything, I don't regret it, but it is something to learn from. I think the original commitment was just based on things that I worried about, but really weren't important. When I did commit to Maryland, I had just gotten over like a hand injury, so I wasn't playing. I was supposed to go to another camp and I couldn't go because I was injured. So at that point, I was like, dang it, like I need to commit somewhere. I'm freaking out, and I did it too early. So if you're in a situation where you're being offered early and you don't feel comfortable or you think it's what you need to do, I would just relax, take your time, don't press over anything, because if it happens, it'll be bound to happen.
Is there pressure from other guys on your travel team committing to different places? Does that add as you start seeing guys start dropping off and making that commitment? I imagine that pressure kind of builds a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's definitely hard when you see your friends committing somewhere. You want to do what they're doing. You're doing a lot of extra, trying to get your name out there and nothing's happening. I'm sure it's really hard. I've never been in that situation, but all I can say is, just trust what you're doing. Trust God, and if it's gonna happen again, it's gonna happen. He'll lead you exactly where you need to be, and I wouldn't get too crazy about it.
What about social media? Did you use social media? Were you posting stuff on Twitter, Instagram, and did that amount to anything?
I definitely have social media, definitely used it. I've never had a specific, account or anything where I had my SAT, height, weight, all these highlights or anything. But I think, I think just being you on social media, I wouldn't, go too crazy, try to do too much with it. If you get in contact with someone, great, but I wouldn't press out all on that. I would try to get to the connection first.
So other than the coaches, who were some influential people, and how did they contribute to your recruiting process?
Yeah. I When I was in high school, actually, the school had a problem with the baseball team. It was more of a school political kind of deal. It just didn't really work out, and
Yeah.
the coaches left, and they went to coach at UMBC, right up the street from here, and they've always been, kind of like parents to me. Two dads. They were always there for me. I was around the school for like 10 years of my life. That's why I go to church too. So I mean, it's always been somewhere where I feel comfortable. And when I was making these decisions, I called them and asked for their opinion. Like what to do. I called them when I wanted to decommit, and I was like, "What would you do? Where would I go?" And even though they wanted me to go to there, UMBC, they were very supportive and very loving in their decisions, talking to me.
So you've got some other accomplishments that most young men that I talk to don't have. You've already published a book. Tell me a little bit about the book, or before you tell me about the book, how does a guy your age write a book and get all that done?
Yeah, I've I've grown a great relationship with Jesus, and he's leaded me, he's guided me, he's changed my life, you know. And when quarantine happened in 2020 in March, you know, everybody's freaking out, everybody's, you know, just like going nuts. And you know, I wanted to have something where instead of me like texting or calling, you know, giving this long spiel, I was like, you know, here, this is what you need, you know, like just use this, you know, try to apply it to your life and use it. And I hope it helps, you know. So I published that first book in June or July of 2020.
What's the
Uh,
title?
it's called More Than a Conqueror. It's on Amazon, and it was great. You know, I got a lot of praise, and people enjoyed it. I feel like they touched their hearts, and I'm just so happy, you know, that, you know, through Jesus, you know, I could help somebody in their situation.
So word on the street is you may have another one coming out.
Yes, sir. My second book, Restart, is coming out mid-January. It'll be on Amazon again, and it should be out in a couple of weeks.
Dude, that's fantastic. Any insight as to what the second one's about?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. Actually, my first book, as a Christian, you know, I'm from the Bible. I'm taught when you're dealing with situations and you know, talking with people, you want grace and you want truth. Those are the two things that you want to center around. And for me, the first book was a lot of grace. You know, it's a lot of you got it. You know, you're good. Jesus has you. Trust all that stuff. And for me personally, I feel like it wasn't enough truth. You know, it wasn't enough. You know, like you got a job to do. You know, as a follower of Jesus, you have a calling greater than you. And I really wanted to get something out there like quick of like both grace and truth. You know, like you're loved, you're good, you got it, but at the same time, you have to help other people feel this type of love and this freedom that I found in Jesus.
Dude, that's awesome, man. I appreciate sharing a little bit of the faith there too. So, um, Ryan Shieh, 2021 catcher, heading off to Liberty University. I think Coach Jackson's got a good one coming.
I appreciate it, sir. Thank you very much.